But this started with one particular article and has now spread to yet another. This time on the Daily Dot. You have a Daily Dot, that bastion of quality journalism. What the Oregon Shooters Manifesto tells us about the dangers of toxic masculinity. Here we go. More demonization of males, white males in particular, even though the guy in question was of mixed race. And of course, the false association yet again with the men's rights movement. As always, no proper research. Of course, there is absolutely no evidence presented whatsoever other than the fact that a couple of people replied to an anonymous message on 4chan and they used the word beta. That's it. Now, if the skeptical feminists are watching this, let me give you an analogy. Meet Joanna Dennehy. She's an English woman who went on a bit of a killing spree a couple of years back. She took a knife and went out and stabbed a number of men because she wanted to know what it was like to kill someone, and she quite enjoyed it, so she then went out at a later date and attempted to kill some more men and was arrested. Now imagine online news media started to say that she was a feminist, and that it was feminist ideology that led her to this. After all, what about the hashtag kill all men? It's almost like it predicted her actions. It must have influenced her actions. She must be the poster child for every feminist everywhere in the world. How could she not be? Because of some tweets on Twitter and the fact that she killed men. Well, how can you deny this evidence? Imagine that was the level of evidence that was needed to condemn the entire feminist movement. Imagine that was the level of evidence that was needed to falsely associate Joanna Dennehy with feminism, and then to condemn every single feminist because of it. That's what we're dealing with feminism online. That's what we're dealing with online media, which has a bias against men's rights activists. They just basically make shit up. And one of the best examples of that is Elliot Roger, who we will get to in a little while.
Yeah. Okay. And what about you two? How do you know someone's a men's rights activist?
Well, first, there's obviously the ones that say that they are. The ones that don't actually take on the label, tend to react to the feminist movement as opposed to coming up with their own points.
As for our own points, I refer you back to the start of last video. Now, let me be clear, we don't blame all the wrongs of society on feminism. It's a much larger problem than just pointing the finger at feminists and saying they did it. But it's extremely difficult to talk about any gender issues without feminists coming in and demanding that you only talk about it in their terms, under the guise of their ideology. And obviously we have a problem with that. Not to mention, we're often told that only female issues count, and that we're just whining, crying man babies who are, I don't know, looking for attention or can't get laid or any other ad hom fucking bullshit that we tend to get. So yeah, we do have a very good reason for criticising feminism, not to mention all the bullshit I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago with the online media. Yeah, I can't think why we would have a problem with feminist ideology. It just escapes me why we would really have an issue with it.
So what I've encountered, they have all been counter to the feminist movement and wanting attention for their cause as opposed to, and distracting from whatever the feminist issue was that they're referring to.
Okay, so let me respond to this from my personal experience, and I'm guessing most MRAs out there would agree with me. There seems to be a thing with feminists that if you're talking about a female issue, then you are only allowed to talk about how that issue affects females. Whereas if you're talking about a male issue, then you have to give equal or more time to the female equivalent. Now, the perfect example of this is the debate over circumcision. If feminists are talking about female circumcision, then we are only allowed to talk about female circumcision, and any male who brings up male circumcision and how it isn't outlawed in the West and should be is condemned as a misogynist who is trying to distract from the conversation. Whereas when we are talking about male circumcision and how it should be illegal in the West, you can guarantee that we are told that we are misogynists because we aren't discussing female circumcision. Do you see how that may be just a little bit hypocritical?
But anybody could go criticize feminism. They're called anti-feminists.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I guess I can't, I'm lacking the words at the moment to describe. But ultimately, if somebody is something, they say that they are. I say, I am identifying as a feminist because of the things that I believe in.
Right.
I'm not putting myself in any specific camp of feminism because I don't think that's an effective use of the term. And men's rights activists, the ones that, like I was saying, the ones that I've seen are speaking out and bringing up things as in opposition to feminist movements.
But I think anybody, not just men's rights activists, could be opposed to the feminist movement.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. But I'm saying that that's a key factor to men's rights activists.
Right, and what about you on Dipple?
Well, I gotta be honest with you, and I know this isn't exactly correct, so here it goes anyway.
Okay.
The first thing that comes to mind when somebody says MRA is Elliot Rodger.
Yeah, I know the look on your face right at this minute. Trust me, it was the same look on my face. But let's face it, this was pretty much predictable. I pretty much knew that someone in this conversation would bring up Elliot Roger. But to give him credit, as we'll see in a couple of minutes, he does correct himself and admits that he may have been misled. So, credit where credit's due. But let's continue.
Mass shooter?
Yeah, but Elliot Roger, at least from the history records, from his YouTube channel, and everything else, it seemed as though he didn't identify as a men's rights activist or watch any men's rights activist stuff.
Right, but even if you don't identify as, you can still be one. It's like I mentioned before, I was a feminist before I even knew what it meant.
Yes, but as we'll explore in a minute, Elliot Roger had absolutely no connection to the men's rights movement whatsoever. He didn't participate in any way. There's no evidence he was influenced by the movement. He never even mentioned the movement once. He never talked about men's rights issues. He never visited men's rights sites, or he wasn't even subscribed to men's rights YouTube channels. There is zero evidence to tie him to the men's rights movement. This is basically a piece of fiction created by feminism, as we will see in a few moments.
But wouldn't that mean that if a person does not identifies as a men's rights activist, or if a person does not be part of the men's rights movement, like any men's rights group, like Elliot Rodger, then how can he still be a men's rights activist?
I was under the perhaps misapprehension that he did in fact identify as that.
Okay.
If that's not true, sue me. Very good.
Yeah, like.
Okay, so I've covered numerous articles in the past which have claimed that Elliot Roger was an MRA, but let's actually have a look at the timeline. So it all started with an article on the Daily Costs. The only evidence given that Elliot Roger was an MRA is this. It says, "We know for a fact that Roger was influenced by this movement as he is subscribed to multiple pickup artist or men's rights channels on YouTube." Now, if you actually go and look at Elliot Roger's subscription list, he is in fact subscribed to pickup artists, but he is subscribed to 0 men's rights channels. It also states later on that he used the word alpha, which once again is a pickup artist term. And apparently Elliot Roger is what we call an incel, or an involuntary celibate. The funny thing is, none of us had ever heard of the word incel before it started to pop up in these type of articles. Incel is not an MRA term. But why let the facts get in the way, right? So the author of the Daily Cost did update his post sometime afterwards because he got a lot of criticism, at which point he admits that he doesn't understand the difference between men's rights activists and the pickup artist community, and just basically assumed that they were the same thing, which is obviously false. So from this one article in the Daily Costs, which had no evidence, no proof, nothing, it then spread to Skeptic,